Who did you talk to? What's going on? It is me, Mike, Lepre King Mike Hill. This is Legit Paranormal, brought to you by Legit Podcast.com. It is July 14th, 2024, 7/14, 224. For the math geeks. Oh, brother. Let's do, oh, no, I got nothing. I don't even want to try. It is Sunday night. After 7 o'clock, it's been a remarkably weird and bizarre weekend. Joining me, though, is Sin, Trader, Hill, author. What's up, Sin?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going all right. It's going all right, I guess. Craziness, though, right? Huh? Craziness.
Yeah, too much.
Craziness.
Yeah.
That's what I just keep saying that when I'm just around people now. I just start going, craziness. And they just go, yeah. I go,
it's way too much.
Joining us always, speaking of way too much, Sarah Parra.
Normal? Why?
I don't know. She said it. It's a segue. It's called a segue. I want to just say Air Force and JV Worthy. Okay. How are you guys doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah. You hanging in? Yep.
We're about to have a massive thunderstorm.
Not us.
I can hear it coming.
Not us.
No.
I'm
we're all
sorry.
in different states, but
you know what?
about to get hit.
I was around a bunch of older Italians today, and they speak in just clips. I realized this. What are you gonna do? That's it. That was a whole conversation I had. I'm like, I can leave. What are you gonna do? I don't know. He's right. What are you gonna do? What can I say? Sin, would you like to do the introductions for tonight's guest?
I would love to. So tonight we have an historian, a storyteller, a ghost tour guide. He is from and still lives on the most haunted island in North America called Bell Island. Please welcome Mr. Henry Crane.
Henry, how are you?
Hello, everybody. I'm fantastic. And yourself?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Henry, right off the bat, gonna ask you, did anyone ever call you Hank?
Nope. Well, that'd be a lie. When I used to coach minor hockey years ago, some of the young kids called me Hank when they weren't calling me something else.
Yeah. So yeah, it's more sports. I get that. So Sin, you speak of Henry Crane, which is the guy actually located to your left.
Yes.
Not really, but
yes.
Tell me about him. Tell me why the Bell Island. What fascinates you about the idea of Bell Island? I want you to start it first because you talk to that. Go ahead.
You know what? He has got so much to talk about. We need to ask him.
Oh, Sin, that's a good one though. I'll give you that. That's a great way to pass the buck.
We are here for Mr. Henry Crane.
Right. Henry, tell me about Bell Island, because I'll be honest, I try to stay as uninformed as I possibly can until I do the interview. That way I can actually learn something and pay attention. So I know nothing. What's Bell Island?
Okay, well, Bell Island is a small island in Newfoundland, which is a province in Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. And it was originally settled as a agricultural town, but in the 1905, mining hit big time, and it turned the whole economy around to be the most prosperous island in Newfoundland until the early 60s. And it went from a population of 1,800 to a population of close to 15,000. And now these days it's gone back to about 2,200 because the mines closed in 1966. It is only it's a 3-mile ferry trip to the mainland, and the boats run every an hour and a half. And we've garnered a lot, and I mean a lot of interest over the last number of years because of our folklore and because we reinvented, and that's not the right word, it's not the right phrase, but we brought back our folklore and everything that happened in its heyday and things that are still happening today. The way I got involved when on Bell Island is I was very close to my grandmother, and she loved, I think she was a witch. She loved folklore, and she had certain, I'm going to say, talents, and she didn't mind showing me her talents when it came to the paranormal. So I got really, really interested, and I used to interview 100, well, I say about 150, 200 people on Bell Island, and I got their ghost stories, and I got their legends, and I go right back to when Bell Island was its heyday. But Bell Island is very popular, and in the summer, like it is now, it is an extremely popular tourist destination because it was famous for its mines, and the mines stretch out 4.5 to 5 miles underneath the ocean. So
all right.
One of the mines today is still open, and where we operate, that's called number 2 mine, and we operate out of number 4 mine, and we're going to get that open next year.
Okay.
And we'll go down and do our stories down there.
Hank, let me. The word you were looking for is you re-energized.
Yep.
You are the Bell Island Wikipedia. And thirdly, are there any water slides?
There are a lot of war slides about Bell Island. Again, Bell Island was the only place in North America actually to come under German attack during World War II. 4 ore boats were sunk, 2 in September and then 2 in November. And there are ghost stories based on that. But the Germans back in before 1939 were Bell Island's biggest iron ore market. And when World War II began, of course, the Germans were barred. That's in itself produces a ghost story. But the Germans came back on September 5th and November 2nd, I think it was, and they returned some of our iron ore in the wake of torpedoes. There was a loss of life. People were petrified because they thought we were going to be invaded by the Germans. And people were really petrified during that time. Soldiers showed up here to protect the mine and to protect the islanders, but they never did come to the land. But they did torpedo the pier where boats came in it, and they sank 4 ore boats and what we call the Tickle, which is a small body of water that goes back and forth St. John's. Interesting story too, because the submarines of the day could only stay submerged for 3 days. They had to go up and fill up their air tanks, etc. And they were known to be in the waters of Conception Bay, which is the bay we are situated in, Conception Bay. And they were here for 3 weeks. And over that period of time, they had 2 attacks. So they always had to surface and then submerge. And the fact is that they were sympathizers, but they were never proven who they were. But one of our most horrific ghost stories, which is the ghost of Dobbin's Garden, and that in itself, that's legendary on Bell Island, right? So yeah, World War II, it had Bell Island was like I said, we came under attack. By the way, my mother used to tell me that when the torpedoes hit the pier, that the whole island shook. That's how, glass broken houses, stuff like that, and people actually thought that the Germans were coming up the hill.
Wow. You mentioned Dobbin's Garden.
Yeah.
Now is that the swamp hag?
That's some people have taken it and made it into the swamp hag, but she is the real name is the ghost of Dobbin's Garden. They made her into the hag. No swamp hag in it, just the hag. But the ghost of Dobbin's Garden got its history and its beginning from World War II. And that's a very, very traumatic story because the young lady, her name was known, and the way it started, where the ghost was born, there was a young lady, and I won't give her first name. Her first name was Mary, and she was what was called back in the day. She worked as a maid back and for some of the businesses that were very profitable, and she was a serving girl. That's what they call her, a serving girl. And she lived out.
Prostitute? You saying prostitute?
Oh no, she was a serving girl. She was a housekeeper. We call her a housekeeper today. Serving girl was the correct term. And her employer treated her very well. She looked after the kids, cleaned house. And once a month, Mary went back to her home, and her home was called Upper Island Cove, and she'd go back there once a month. But before 1939. The Germans, as I said, were the biggest market for Germany, for Bell Island. And, of course, German sailors mixed with the young girls and the guys here. Now, I'm going to tell you this is a bit funny. My grandmother told me that when the German sailors, and there were lots of them here, when they were on Belle Island, they would go to the dances. This is the general description of the German sailors. They were a lot of them were blonde. They had blue eyes.
I'm guessing already. Yeah, yes, yes,
They had all their teeth,
yes.
and they were very handsome, and they were very mannerly when they would ask young women out for a dance. And so
No.
they were very, very, very popular.
Everyone gets in the pool. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's creepy. That's creepy. That's creepy.
and this is where it starts, because young Mary fell in love with a German sailor.
Did
And
she not?
they had a good love affair. But when World War II began, the Germans were barred from Belle Island because Germany entered with the Allies into the Second World War. Germans were barred from the shore. And for 3 years, Mary, well, she lost her man she might have ended up marrying. 3 years after they were barred, the first German attack, and that fall of the 1942 happened on Belle Island. The men were up in Dobbin's Garden. I think that's what you asked about. They were up in Dobbin's Garden in September, getting ready to pull up their potatoes, their carrots, their turnips, and everything else. And over next to Dobbin's Garden, there's a swamp. It is a very dangerous swamp, still there today. You could be walking on good ground, and the next step you're in over your head.
Isn't there a hag in that area? 'Cause I've been to that one. I've been to that swamp. I know the hag. I
She
don't like
didn't
her.
listen. She did not. Anyway, she was on her way home. The men were in Dobbin's Garden in 1942, right? She disappeared. She went home, so people thought, but there was no phones. We had no phones or anything like that. So when she didn't show up when she's supposed to, her parents thought she wasn't coming home that month. And when she didn't come back to work, her employer thought she quit. This went on for about 3 months before the parents finally showed up and said, Mary, how come you didn't come home? No, Mary. Mary had gone to go home 3 months prior, was never seen again. And then we come in to September. The men who were working up in Dobbin's Garden, getting ready to pull their potatoes, heard a voice call out, a young woman scream for help. Help me, she said. Help me, please. But as quick as it started, it stopped.
Oh, sneaky Mary.
Nobody would go in to the woods because Newfoundlanders were very, very scared of what we call the fairies. These were not little people. Our fairies here are very malevolent, very dangerous to be around. So, as quick as it started, it stopped. So the men just put it out their heads that lucky nobody went into the woods to look for anything, what happened. The following spring, when the men were over getting their garden ready, planting potatoes, planting seeds, etc., as each man filled out his plot, he would leave. There was one man left. One man left, and the sun was starting to set, and he started to smell a stench that was so rancid, he couldn't get it out of his lungs. He looked down at the bottom of the garden where the swamp was at, and up walking towards him was the young woman dressed just like Mary. She was about 120 feet away. She had on her white frock, which was a sleeveless coat at the time. She started to walk towards him. At each step she took, the stink became even more and more, and his feet were bolted, as he said, to the ground. As she got closer, cloak went from white to gray to brown to ragged, the color of the swamp. He fell back into a trench that was being set for potatoes. And as he fell back, now he knew it wasn't a woman, fell to its hands and knees and crawled from his feet right up over his body. The stink was unbelievable. And the last words he remembered, the only words he remembered was he was screaming for help or trying to scream. The last thing he remembered her saying was, I cried for help. I pleaded for help. No one came to help me. Now no one will come to help you. And he passed out. But an hour or so afterwards, he didn't show up. And by then it was almost dark. So some of the men went over because his wife got frightened. She went over. She went to some of the neighbors. And a group of men went to Dobbin's Garden, and they found him on his back, passed out. And the stink that was on him, they couldn't, as the Newfoundland term is, you couldn't hold your nose over it. It was that bad. They took him to the house, called the doctor. Doctor came up and said, my God, Louise, what did he fall into an outhouse? What happened to him? He started to come around and he started to tell his story. And from there on in, any man caught in Dobbin's Garden by himself felt the wrath of the ghost of Dobbin's Garden. It was only
That's fair. That sounds fair to me. It sounds reasonable for Mary to do that.
I knew you were going to say that.
But I would like to know why the fairies on Belle Island are so terrifying that grown men will not go into the woods.
All right, wait. Before you ask that, let's stick on Mary for 1 second. Just to stay before he gets away from Mary. First off, I love how you say German fella. Oh, that's probably one of the best things I've heard tonight. Sarah, you realize that me asking about a water slide, but because I've got this Italian-American accent that no one can understand, we actually got started on war sides, and it worked out better than it could have ever worked out.
Yeah, but your ridiculous question turned into something great.
That's how that works. And then thirdly, my reaction to when he told the story about that Mary thing was typical. She's got to hang around, cause problems for someone else. She just can't leave. She's got to stay behind. You ever notice how it's mostly females that haunt when it comes to this type of thing? They take a female shape. You don't hear of women saying there was a man calling for me in the woods because you'd never go in the woods. You'd be terrified to go in the woods if a man was calling for you.
And that's where the fairies come in. As the fairies are malevolent in nature. They are very, very dangerous to even go near. Fairy Queen, and she's called a Fairy Queen, but she doesn't have to look like a woman. She can look like a man. She's a shapeshifter. Very, very dangerous. She can just by her touch, start to infest you with the venom of the fairies, and she can make you crippled, mentally deficient. She can have parts grow out on you, or she can just infest your body so that you can go back and infest others.
I think I might have met her, Henry. What does she look like?
That's the thing. She looks how she needs to look. That's the thing about her. You may have met her. You might be talking to her right now.
It could be me. And I don't know which one of you it is.
That's right. Could be all she needs, all the Fairy Queen she needs is the touch. And I get a lot of this stuff from my grandmother, who was, like I said, I'm going to call her a bit of sorcerer, a bit of witch. She was very, very in tune with all of this. Is incredible.
She sounds awesome.
Well, because as I grew up, I said, you know what, the ghost of Dobbin's Garden. My father, who was one of them people who would farm Dobbin's Garden as to help his family, feed his family. He refused any of our kids to go in.
Sorry,
refused. Pardon?
It's mostly potatoes, is what I'm asking.
Potatoes, cabbage, turnip, carrots. Right. That's what they call root vegetables. Mm-hmm. Anything that grew in the ground, it was, say, grown in Dobbin's Garden, right? And the men used it to help feed their families. Although the work was steady, it paid poorly. So the men used that to supplement the food for their family. But after that first incident and second and third incident happened, no men would be caught there by themselves. They would all leave as a group. And as kids, as much as we like to play, my father would kill us if we went to Dobbin's Garden. He was, and he didn't believe. He didn't believe till he was almost caught in Dobbin's Garden. So then he didn't believe.
You know, I was born in the early 70s, and we had a local lore. It was like where they did witchcraft. It was by the cliffs. That's what it was called. And it was like we really had these cliffs that were like too ridiculously high to be have kids be able to get access to them. But there was a certain spot where there was like a pentagram drawn and all this stuff. And I remember being a kid, just being because I'm one of those people, so scared that I wouldn't even go near the woods that led to that. Because there was a kid that actually had an incident with himself. They named the pond after him, and then this started to happen, and it became a big thing in the early 80s. So I was terrified of that kind of stuff. Sarah, you want to ask a question?
Yes, I would like to ask what JV is asking about the Jigs dinner. She says to tell them about the Jigs dinner. So now I want to know what this is.
Oh, the Jig's dinner, that is a Newfoundland tradition. Jig's dinner is when, you get a big pile of family coming around. And the Jig's dinner, to tell you what, it is potatoes, carrot, turnip, cabbage, greens, turkey, roast beef, salt beef, blueberry pudding, and peas pudding.
That sounds so good.
Wow.
Oh, we had it today.
Oh.
It is fantastic. And I think that's where the turkey nap originated. Because once you sit down and have a little bit of everything, you got to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You gotta go to sleep.
So you found that Sarah apparently delicious sounding, and I was thinking, where's the sauce, or as we call sauce locally, gravy. We actually
the gravy goes with it. We have gravy with everything. Gravy got to go with it. You got to have gravy.
It's all cooked in the same pot, which makes it sound even better. Sin, I think we should go. I think we should go for Jig's dinner.
Oh, you will love Jig's dinner, especially salt meat.
See, I grew up on English food, so that sounds very Irish to me. It does sound.
It is Irish. Yeah, in England they used to call it corned beef. We call it salt meat here.
I love corned beef. I love corned beef. People don't like it. I don't get it.
Yeah, you go back if you're going to have a Jig's dinner, you won't have to bother to have breakfast.
Wow.
Right? Actually, for 3 days prior, right? Because it is quite the dinner, and then you got to throw in dessert, and maybe it's either apple pie, blueberry duff, or coconut cream pie. So you have 3 or 4 desserts.
What's blueberry duff?
Oh, blueberry duff. You get a bag and you tie it over. Before you tie it over, you put in flour and you put in your yeast and you put in your blueberries, and it's real pasty, and you put it down in the boiler with the Jig's dinner. Tie it over, leave it with the Jig's dinner for about an hour, and when you open it up, it's white and it's full of blueberries, and it's sinful.
Kind of like pudding. Kind of a pudding.
Yeah, but it's a duff. It's a duff. Yeah, it's a pudding. It's a pudding. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I can't. That sounds so gross. All of it cooking in one pot. No, let me finish. All of it cooking in one pot. It shouldn't touch. Some foods don't touch. And
I'm the same way.
You got first you got to cook the salt meat, and then everything goes in the pot. So you got to have everything with the flavor on it. When you put it in different pots, you lose the flavor.
And how many pots do you guys think they had back in the day when these traditions started? You cooked everything in one pot over the fire.
My grandmother, I'd say we had a pot about 10 gallons.
Wow.
Great big 10-gallon pot, right? And for dinner. Oh yeah. It was enormous pot.
I've seen them with gravy. Sin, you look like you.
The gravy's not in there. The gravy's not in there. The gravy is cooked separately. The roast beef is cooked separately, and the turkey, right? But everything and the peas pudding, that's different. They got but the potatoes, carrot, turnip.
You can't throw the apple pie in there.
No. Well, some fellas might try it. You don't know.
Maybe they would.
You never know until you try. Yeah.
But Sin, you look like you have the alfalfa hair, not anymore. And Sarah, you look like you had like bear ears. See, you do right now. The pictures behind you. I thought they were ears. I thought you were wearing like a headband with ears, and then I realized you weren't.
On the wall.
Yeah, they look like ears. Sin, you're up for questions.
Besides the Jig's dinner,
here it goes.
So you've also got the cabbage rolls, and you've got the fish cakes, pan fried cod. This is Newfoundland stuff. It's the best stuff in the world.
Cake, right? It's like a crab cake. A clam cake.
No. This is pan fried cod. There's nothing like it. Nothing like pan fried cod.
No, you said cake. You said fish cake.
Fish cake. Oh yes, fish cake. Fish cake is potatoes and fish and onions and everything made into a ball and then fried in the pan.
That's kind of like what we have here is called you're making me forget what the frig we call it. Clam cake. It's got clam in it. They cook they fry it up into the balls. Clam cakes and chowder. So it's
similar to that, but when you do the codfish has to be salted. It has salted codfish with and of course then there's fish and brews with scrunchions.
Salt everything.
Yeah, salt everything. Yep.
Salt it up.
Yep.
Henry, what else about the island as far as personal stories that you've heard of give me one of someone that you know from the island that it was like, wait till you hear this, and then they told you.
Well, like that's what I was saying earlier, that when I started collecting stories, I used to go into people's homes with my little tape recorder and say, tell me your ghost stories or tell me your stories. And I recorded. So how many stories do I have like that? It's really, really, I don't know. I could give you a scary one. I could give you one that's not scary.
I want to know one that stuck out to you. You know what I mean? Like when you hear them, like when you've heard the stories, some must ring, like give you that. This is like an eerie feeling I get when someone tells me a story that I really believe to be true, as opposed to if I'm hearing a story and I'm thinking, I don't know if Bigfoot did that to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I will tell you a story that, the house is still there, by the way.
Okay.
The house is still there on Bell Island. And the lady who told me the story, she's still alive. And her whole family tells the same story. They had a big family. A lot of people on Bell Island had big families back in the day. 6, 8, 10, 12 kids. So...
no telephone.
You had something to do in winter because you had no games, you had no TV.
That's it. What do you do?
What do you do, right? Your kids were born in July and August, September, year after year. They were in a house. They were in a big 2-story house, what was called a company house, one of the bigger houses. They were very fortunate to get this company house. And there was, besides a mother and a father, there were 8 kids living in the house.
So 10 of them.
And they were in it no time, absolutely no time. And when they'd go to bed in the nighttime, they started to hear scratching on the door, the bedroom doors. Then they got a bit, first they thought, like here in where I live at, there might be rats.
Yeah, no pets, right? No pets.
You figured, because we had lots of rats on the mines. The mines attracted rats because of the food. And by the way, the men wouldn't kill the rats because they served a purpose in the mines. Anyway, they kept scratching at the doors. And so, and a lot of people on Bell Island were Catholic and believed in the Catholicism at the time. Mm-hmm. First thing, the scratching was started, then it got intense and it frightened the parents. And so they had what we used to do then, or what they did then, have the house blessed. Mm-hmm. Drive the spirits out. Yep. It didn't work. It didn't work. Scratching became even worse. And there was no locks on the doors like they are now in every single bedroom door and everything else. They started to put butter knives into the molding on the doors to keep them shut. Anyway, the scratching became more intense. And then the voices started. And so the parents told the children to put the bureau, bring the bed up to the door. This went on for about a month. And finally, the parents, the children, everybody left. And about 2-3 weeks after that, somebody went and bought the house and traded the house with them for a smaller house. However, when they moved into that big house, they couldn't stay either. So the big thing is, what was it? It wasn't a rat. It wasn't a mouse. It wasn't anything. The scratching on the doors, it actually almost scratched through the doors. And the people who witnessed it outside, the parents, they'll even tell it today how frightened they were. And it frightened me because when I look at the house is frightening to look at. For whatever reason, I don't know. It just puts the little short hairs on your neck all the way up. And to this day, that house is... Ugh.
If your whole family's hearing it, that's terrifying to begin with, right? But my thought is, I don't know if I could keep living with, like, pushing the bureau up against the door and just waiting it out. Like, no, what I'm saying is I'd have to be the guy in the family, the jerk, to run into the hallway to see what the hell it is, and probably
and that's it. They were the parents that stay in that room as they stayed in their room till the sun come up, and then they were there maybe a month, and they thought of how fantastic it is to get this nice big house, not knowing what they were facing because the owner had moved out, didn't even bother to sell it. Here, let's trade.
Wow,
right? I'm gone, and. To this day, when even this lady tells a story, she still gets upset. So I don't know what it was. I know it was evil. I can guarantee you that.
Sarah, tell me this: does not knowing what it was affect them moving forward from it? Like, in other words, they never found out what it was. So
they tried. Yeah. They tried because it spoke with their local priest. You know, what is this? All the priest said, like, he blessed the house. And when nothing happened, when he went there the next time, he said, "Everybody get out," and they got out, right?
Yep.
And that's the way it is today. Nobody lives in that house anymore.
Really?
Nobody wants to live in that house anymore, and everybody avoids that house.
Sin, doesn't that kind of sound like the Bell Witch house story, where they were experiencing all these scratching and strange events in the house, and they came suddenly and then they stopped suddenly? But yeah, you would want to know what it was. Obviously, my first thought was like, well, why couldn't it be fairies or gnomes or some type of cryptid even that was lurking around trying to get their attention for whatever reason. I mean, apparently you guys have fairies there that are just malicious for no reason at all other than to be malicious.
Well, as I said earlier, my grandmother said, I said, we moved to Bell Island. And when I say we, I mean the people came to Bell Island, and we weren't the first residents. The Beothuk, the Indians of Newfoundland, they were the original settlers. But when Bell Island started to become prosperous, we had people show up from almost every country in the world to work here. And they bought their superstitions, they bought their beliefs, and my grandmother believed they bought their ghosts, their demons, entities with them. And when, I said, Mom, that's all I ever called her. I said, why is there so many different things happening on Bell Island? Well, she said some was made up. But then I'd ask her about the ghost of Dobbin's Garden, or I'd ask her about the White Woman, I'd ask her about the fairies. And then she would tell me where they came from. She was an incredible woman. So much so that I got to tell you this. She showed me one time when I was old enough to believe and understand. I was 12 years old, and she had a coffee cup, a teacup, and a plate on the table. She said, just watch this. See what I'm going to show you what I can do. This was a lady who never got grade 2. And she started to put her hand over the table like this, and the cup and the saucer started to move. And it started to move with her, and then moved off, and moved right off the end of the table. And she kept it suspended and going and going. And then she came back and put it on the table. She did the same thing with the plate. We only had old black and white TV back in the day, and she had an old TV. And every time she went near it, everything went squiggly, and she couldn't. If she wanted to watch TV, she had to watch TV from 20 feet away. Like, near TV, that's it. It went nuts. It went totally nuts. And I asked her how about this place. I said, "How'd you do that, Mom?" She said, "I don't know." And she could never wear a watch. If it was a mechanical watch, electrical watch, it would stop. So she put it on her. She was really gifted.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot of gifts.
She was amazing.
Yeah, but it's tough to watch TV with.
And I spent a lot of time with her. You didn't watch a lot of TV back in the day. I would spend a lot of time with her, and she'd tell me stories, and we'd wait. A story I know, this is my story. I lived down at grandmother's house, and again, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, 12 years old, she started to tell me things that I may have witnessed but never gave a second thought to. My grandfather had passed away when I was only a little over 2.5 years old. And there's one night, because she'd always send me to bed before 10 o'clock. And so this night she let me stay up, and we had the old wood stove. I don't know if you guys have ever seen something like it. The flames flicking up through the dampers, and we're toasting bread right on the stove, burning it up more likely. And we had cocoa, and now she said, "Henry," she said, "now it's almost 10:30. Don't be afraid when this happens." I said, "What's going to happen, Mom?" The light came on. The light switch clicked up. Now, it was one of those light switches, it makes a lot of noise when it goes up, goes click. Unlike the soft switches we have now, you don't hear them. Click when it went up. And I was looking right at her. She was looking at me, and I said, "Well, how did that happen? How'd you do that?" She said, "That's your grandfather. He comes home when he used to work at 10:30. He'd be in the home almost 10:30 every night. And he'd stay up and have a cup of tea, and he'd have a slice of toast." She said, "That's going to go off at 11 o'clock. So I couldn't wait for 11 o'clock to come around. So when just about 11 o'clock hit, click, the light switch goes off. And I said, "Oh, well, Mom, that's something else." She said, "So long as the ghost of your grandfather lives here, you'll never have to be afraid." And she said, "This house is haunted, but nothing will ever touch you while you're here."
Wow.
And over the years after that, I see that every now and then. I couldn't believe it. Right. And to this day, I can't believe it. Now, she had a grandson that used to stay there.
Henry, can I bring up a theory on your grandmother?
Yep.
All right. So either she possessed these abilities or was one of the world's greatest magician / pranksters. And just all these different things, like an automatic timer at 11. She did this to you, and she would just one after another. And maybe she talked about it with her friends, like, "Oh, I fool Henry all the time. He thinks I do this and that. And I move the saucer," and they're giggling about it. They're eating their blueberry muffins. It could be that, or it could be what you're saying.
Never in a million worlds. You know, my grandmother, like myself and most people around here, I grew up pretty dirt poor. She might have 3 light bulbs in the whole house. When it rained, the roof leaked like a sieve. You know, she had nothing in her life except us, until we all grew up and started to make sure she had everything she ever needed. But she could tell us the stories, and she heartily believed. She said the words that I'll never forget, and probably no doubt other people have said them, or people have said the same thing. If you believe in good, and you believe good exists, then evil has to exist as well.
True.
So you have to know what is good and what is evil. And she told me, like, the devil doesn't always appear as somebody hateful. You got to be careful. That's how the fairy queen does it. She doesn't appear as something hideous. She appears as something beautiful or handsome or something you want. Beware of the fairies.
Or something that needs help.
Yeah, they would do that. You know, and people hear some of the legends, and they're all wrong. They say, tear a piece of a Bible and put the piece of paper in your pocket. Turn your shirt inside out. Carry prayer beads. And my grandmother used to say, totally a waste of time. Totally a waste of time. The only thing, wherever these entities and these fairies came from, the only thing that can ward out the fairies on Bell Island is if you carry small pieces of iron ore on your person. Doesn't hurt them, but they cannot penetrate the shield of the iron ore. And she used to say something, I know she must have heard it somewhere, maybe she didn't. She said, iron ore is the greatest of them all. Nothing penetrates iron ore. And many a man believed it, because when the men came out of the mines, last going off, we had showers, and men could shower. We didn't have running water, but in the mines, the company started to look after the men, and they could shower, the soap and get showered fully and go home. 95% of the men would never, ever, ever take their iron ore covered coveralls off, or they would never, ever wash until they got home. They were afraid of the fairies and what they could do.
Wow.
How much they believed.
You know, Sin, let me tell you something. What's funny is that Henry sounds more like somebody that I was used to growing up, as opposed to somebody that's not anywhere near where I live. Because, Henry, where I live, it was strictly Irish and Italian immigrants. Like, all my grandparents came in over in the 20s, and where I live is literally, it was Irish or it was Italian. And they hated each other for a long time because they were trying to, fight over positions and whatnot. But it was strong Catholic. This neighborhood, this area was they were so strongly Catholic. That's kind of falling apart. I get that. And I had the nanas with the superstitions. She would say if someone gave you the evil eye or the Moloch, she had these gold pennants, like with the hand like this, to ward off the Moloch. And literally, the Italian horn. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. The Italian kids used to make us wear a horn, and that would ward off some other thing that was evil. So we had a long list of these things. I wondered, did you have stuff like that from where you're from growing up? Was it like that?
Crosses,
Yeah, but that's normal. That's what normal. Like, ore in your pockets is a little bit different. Iron ore in your pockets is not the same as a cross. Sarah, what about you? Any superstitions like that?
Well, I have both of those pendants. I have my grandmother's horn. And, I have the hand of Samsara. That's the hand you're talking about. I have both those things that I would wear if I was going to do any sort of paranormal investigating or anywhere where I felt like I wanted ancestral protection. But yeah, that part of New York was also all Italian Catholics or Polish Catholics. And then Buffalo is where all the Irish Catholics were. I think it was just that time during all the plagues and the famines that there was just a ton of immigration to the
But
state.
the nanas had such powers.
Oh, the
Like
nanas.
grandmothers. Oh, like my grandmother and then my great grandmother. And we used to call her great grandma. She would tell stories that was so. They seemed so hideous to us because it was just how you had to handle things. But like, it was so like really in her beliefs of like what she was afraid of, what you don't do. This is what you like. Certain things you just did not do. If it was a thunderstorm, you sat in the stairwell or the basement. That's it. Those are the two places you can go sit. It's like, why? It's just that was it. Those were the things were.
Didn't know until I was a grown adult that you actually. My grandmother had me so convinced that you couldn't take a shower during a thunderstorm.
But that is true, though. I thought.
Is that true? No, someone told me that's not true.
I wouldn't do it anyways. Water's a conduit. What?
Your house is grounded.
I know, but I go on a shower. Dude, I got electrocuted on stage once because I stepped in a bear thing. It was like a bear puddle, and
the electricity was inside with you. Anyways, but yeah, we had the whole thing where you had the
don't talk physics. Don't talk physics to me. Sorry, Henry. You were saying. What is the Belle Island boom?
I'm talk over you now.
The Belle Island boom.
Yes.
Now there's a that's something that's totally different. That goes back to around 1973, 74. And this is not folklore, and nobody's been able to explain it. Well, there's an explanation. They're not getting the true story. That's the bottom line. In the 1970s, up in the southern part of the island, there's an area called Lance Cove, and on a sunny morning in October, I believe it was, beautiful sunny morning, not a cloud in the sky, around 11:30 in the morning. What happened was a family was up there. They're Bickfords. They're called. That was their last name. They started to hear a high pitched whining sound. It got worse and worse and worse. Now, as it was seemed like it was aimed at the house, and they were cooking the Jigs dinner for Sunday morning. They were for their dinner, and they were cooking it. And then whatever it was, and nobody seems to know, whatever it was, it hit the house. Now, when it hit the house, I don't know if you've seen fuses with that screw in instead of breakers. Well, as the sound was getting more and more and more, the young girl who was 16 years old, she looked in the hallway. There was no panel, it was just a fuse box, and the fuses whirred backwards fast as they could go. And they embedded 15 feet into the wall. Away, embedded into the wall.
Wow.
And whatever hit the wires went through the wires down into a shed, and then there was a big bang, a big boom.
Did you say shed?
Yeah, there was a shed, right? It held a horse and some hens. Now, and the last thing that happened, when they looked out to their screen door, the whole view was red, as if it was red dust.
Oof.
And when it hit, boom, it was gone. There was nothing. The red coloring was gone. They looked out. Here's what they found. Within 2 hours, they showed up from Los Alamos, Texas. Right? The whole area was quarantined off. The fuse, they took all kinds of pictures. Newfoundland Fire Marshal was there. Took pictures of that. Every single bit of copper running through the wires was gone.
What?
No residue, no burn marks. It was just gone. And it looked as if the plastic, the shielding around the wires, was like no wires ever put into it. That's the first thing. In the eaves around the house that were made out of 2x4, it was like if you took a washcloth and twisted it. Then down in the shed, the horse wasn't hurt at all, but the hens were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And when the investigators came in, there was 3 or 4 rats underneath. They were dead. Again, the wire running down to the shed, 0 copper in it. And down at the back of the garden, there was 3 round holes, about 4 feet deep, an isometric triangle, and there was no clay residue, there was no grass, and they were just as if somebody took a punch and punched 3 holes in an isometric triangle. No clay, no grass, no nothing.
What do they say caused it?
The official story, because the fire marshal had to go down to Los Alamos, Texas, was that it was ball lightning.
Yeah, no.
No, impossible. And there was a young feller coming home from the woods. He was after cutting down a bit of wood. He had a silver buckle, a big silver buckle on his belt. That was gone. That just disintegrated. And on one side of his face where it came in, on the left side of his face was all red, but the other side was perfect. Wasn't touched.
Wait, Henry, did anyone check for radiation?
Pardon?
Did anyone check for radiation after this happened?
Within hours, the whole area was cordoned off. But and on top of that, the house itself wasn't damaged with windows, but there are windows blown out of houses 300 and 400 feet away. But their house had no windows blown out.
All right.
They checked for everything. They showed up from Los Alamos, Texas. I was talking to the people that was passed on. As a young girl, 16 years of age, she's still alive. But they showed up. Those big galvanized milk containers.
Yeah.
This guy showed up, and when they came from the bottom of the woods, they had those containers, and they had tops on them, and they had the white. Well, I guess we're calling them hazmat suits now. They came up, and then the fellers came in and started to interview Mr. and Mrs. Beckford and says this was a natural phenomenon. It was ball lightning. And then they took all the investigators who were involved with the Canadian side of it, went down to Los Alamos, Texas, and the official story was ball lightning. And everybody was saying, BS.
Like the scene from E.T.,
right?
No.
All the guys in the white suits.
No.
I was very, very fortunate to know the fire marshal years and years later, and he had a little case put away. He showed me the shielding over the wire. Not hurt. It's just like he took the wire out of it. He showed me pictures of the 2x4s along the roof. They were twisted like you would twist up an old rag, right? And what he showed me is like that was never gone in the report. And of course, why wasn't the horse damaged, but yet the hens and the rodents underneath, they were dead, right? What happened to the 3 holes? How did they get there?
What is the local belief then?
Nobody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows what it's not. It's not ball lightning or any kind of lightning, right? And everybody knows that day. I was just ever going back on vacation, and my mother heard it. She lives a mile and a half away. She heard the boom, and nobody knows what happened because when it hit first, guys going around with cars. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Well, the people who lived in the house, they were petrified. They took out. They thought it was the end of the world. Nobody knows. We know what it is, but we never know what it is.
I tell you what, the one thing that would have scared me would have been the hazmat suits. Once those show up, I just start thinking, oh no, like this isn't going to be told. The truth's not going to be told. This is going to get bad. But I mean, for the copper wires to all go, and for there to be holes in the ground, and for everything to die that's basically on the ground, more ground level animals. It does sound like there might have been an electric explosion or one of those type of waves or something like that killed everything on the low ground. But I don't believe it would be electricity. Was there even a storm?
There was nothing. There was a beautiful sunny fall morning. There was nothing. No clouds, no wind, just a sunny day. Now that was back in the time when the Americans and the Russians were messing around with the Star Wars program. Putting weapons in space. I suppose that could be an answer, but not much of an answer.
No one thought it might be a UFO. No, that's why.
Well, people thought it, but they weren't putting that out there, right? Because they took out 3 different cans, right? And before anybody was allowed down, the whole area was cordoned off. Before anybody could get down there, everything was taken away. The hens, the rodents, whatever hit the ground was gone. The wire was gone. The two 30 amp fuses, they were gone, right? But the imprints were still in the wall. What away? That's what I found amazing because they screw in. Then they screwed out with such force and impact that almost 15, 16 feet away, they embedded into the wall. That is, something else. And then there was no electricity left, no copper left in your wires.
Yeah.
And the outlets and the switches weren't even burnt. It's like it was never there.
I got to say, I would be less scared if it was a UFO, and I would be more scared if it was one of the governments testing something and just using my area as a testing zone. If I'm being honest, that scares me more because you'll never know about that, and no idea what
you'll never know, right? You'll never know that.
They don't want you to know.
No.
Sin, anything else you'd like to ask?
Yes. I've heard there are mermaids and giant squid around the area of Bell Island.
Well, those stories I've never heard, and Bell Island is not usually attracted to those. You're probably up in Trinity Bay somewhere where those stories abound, but in Bell Island, never heard no mermaids around Bell Island.
Oh, yeah.
Although that'd be nice. Nobody's ever told me a mermaid story.
Yeah, but you see how he just repped Bell Island? He's like, ain't no mermaids around here. Go up there. Go to the whatever that bay.
Go to Trinity Bay.
Go to Trinity Bay, Sid.
Okay, I have another question.
Here.
I got another question. So you mentioned the miners earlier, and some say that white crosses appear.
No, they don't appear. They're painted there. When the mining started to move underground, the miners could only do a couple of things to honor somebody who died. Number 3, number 4, number 6, they're all underground mines. And every time a miner would die, at the very spot that the miner would die, the miners would use whitewash and draw a cross on the wall where he died. That was a sign of respect. That's the first thing that they do. And the next thing that they do, because a death of a miner in the mines itself went through number 2, 3, and 4, and 6 quicker than you could, it was like a rumor goes like wildfire. Number 2, 3, 4, and 6, all the men, didn't matter if there was the beginning, the middle, or the end of the shift, they would all leave the mines as a sign of respect, and they'd paint the cross on the wall. Now, the company didn't like it. Matter of fact, to be quite honest, the company hated it because you want to try to attract people to work in your mine. There's crosses on the wall, and then miners say, well, that's where a person died from a blast or from a fall of ground or from drilling. You're not exactly, it's not exactly a package where you want to go down. But 106 miners died, and there's 106 crosses. And those crosses are still there today.
They should stay out of the commercial business. Like, fire mines. We got 120 dead, but that's it. Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah, people say that because the mines went underground in 1905 and closed in 1966. I mean, that's 61 years. And when you talk to some people in 66, say a little over 60 years, there were 106 fatalities. That's a lot of fatalities. A lot of people say it isn't, but I think it is. But on top of that, there are 3 times that amount of men who, because of blasting, fall of ground, which is top falling in on top of them, or drilling, or runaway cars, right? Runaway ore cars. There's 3 times as many men as that got lost limbs, had their part of faces blown away with rock coming back from the blast. It was dangerous mining, and the crosses were always put there for the fatality, right?
It's amazing. Something I could never do. The fear of stuff collapsing on top of me. Oh God,
yeah.
Too much.
Well, the other thing too, when back in the day before there was any kind of phone, the only phone that you would get would be like one of those old phones that you turn the crank, and that was from the mine up to the main office, and that's the only thing you get. And some of the places didn't even have that. So if you if there was a fatality in the mine, there was young fellas there, 12 years old, 10 years old, who worked in the mines. They were called nippers, and they call them nippers because they were young fellas, fast. And if somebody got killed, they would send the nipper up to the surface, and he would go to the boss's office. They would turn the crank, and that was only connected to one spot, the ambulance. Wow. So The minute that somebody was killed in mine, and right in the main office, they called it, there was a whistle, like an air raid siren. So, and that was used to let the hearse know or the ambulance know there was a fatality in the mine. So that would go off. And if you're working in number 4 mines, you get 4 long blasts. Now, just put this in your head. 4 long blasts of that whistle meant there was a fatality in number 4 mine. Now, if you had a brother, father, husband, here you are, waited, all of you waited outside number 4 mine. And as the first miner came up, he might go over and say to you, your husband is dead. Right? And all the women around you and all the men around you, they would say, everybody would be happy that it wasn't their spouse, but they felt so much pain for that person. Every time that whistle went off, every single woman on Bell Island was petrified because they knew it was a death. So miners very, very hard.
They weren't all petrified.
Pardon?
So they probably weren't all petrified.
Oh, you and the women's lib. Go ahead.
Well, you take. Could have been your father. Could have been your brother.
Yeah, that's true. But some of us maybe didn't.
Yeah, well, that was the odd one.
Spare a husband.
But you didn't know who it was until that first miner came up, right?
Yeah.
That detention, and it was never a woman. Women were not permitted to work in the mines. There was never, for its whole history.
Women are too smart to want to work in the mines.
Maybe so.
Henry, my apologies. She thought we were back talking about the hag in the swamp. But we were still talking about the miners. So, did they use the canaries?
No, I mentioned the rats earlier.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there were rats in the mines, and it's not a ghost story, but it's a true story. The men would feed the rats. The rats are like canaries.
Yeah.
Because they can sense danger. They can sense gas. If the rats start coming up at the mines, the men came at the mines. That was just as simple. If they saw the rats taking off, the men were right behind them. And the men would always, when they ate their sandwich, and their hands were filthy because there was no place to clean up, they'd leave a little quarter of that sandwich and feed the rat. Go ahead.
Didn't rats help on boats in the sense of, like, if you saw the rats leaving the boat, it was a sign? The
rats sense danger. They know that there's something not right, and they will leave.
You never heard the saying, Mike, like rats leaving the Titanic?
Well, I never heard that saying, but I can tell you now, because we have boats, we have ferry boats here that take us back and forth to the mainland. If you see rats leaving, you better be right behind them.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, the ferry boats.
Except you're on a boat, so where are you going to go?
Well, there are lifeboats, life rafts.
No, it's just, he's saying it's just a very good early detection to get.
Yeah, they were very early detection.
Yeah,
thanks,
you got to finish up your affairs and be like, I got to go, and then you should go. Is what he said.
Yes.
Yeah. My grandmother and my grandfather, on my other side, they used to work on the sealing boats, going out to, getting the seals and the codfish, and they'd be gone for weeks and months on end. And if they ran into a heavy storm and got caught in the ice, they saw the rats start to leave the boat, because they were a lot of wooden vessels back in the day. If they started before they started to feel the collapse of the boat, the rats had already felt it. They were gone. So you better get ready and try to make your best in the cold and in the ice. Because once they left, that was it.
And rats can be scary.
Oh, you better believe they can be scary. Our rats were very well fed. Miners used to feed them all the time, right? And
I got a dog. Anything about rats. I couldn't keep a rat. I had mice in the house. I think there might be one left, but I've hunted all of them down, and I've acted like I've done like a serious hunt. Like I caught a rat.
If I ever got a rat in my house, I'd burn it down.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at. I beat the snot out of one of these. What, you don't like the abuse of mice?
No, just gross.
Yeah, it's not gross. It's worse than to have them run around and hear the pitter patter of their little feet.
Okay.
Sin, what would you like to say? Last question or last comment for Henry as we go around.
Henry, did part of your island fall off?
Parts of our island are always falling off. Our island is shale, a shale type rock, and the constant erosion, we're surrounded by water. The constant beating from the North Atlantic erodes the bottom of the island, and every now and then we get a nice bit of cliff fall into the ocean.
That's not good for real estate or tourism.
No, but I mean, it doesn't. Our island is still 3 miles by 9 miles, so we still got a lot of falling in before we got to leave.
Yeah, but it's like, hurry now. Get us while we're still here.
But the strange thing about that is, on what we call the northwestern side of the island, it's all shale. And on the other side, on the southeast part, it's all hard rock. So, well, I guess we're going to be clinging to hard rock eventually. And there's so much shale, and once it falls off, underneath that is solid rock. It's incredible the way the island is shaped. Incredible.
Imagine you living on a place that's eventually not going to be there. Like, we're getting rid of it every year.
It could happen.
More every year. Falls in the ocean. Falls.
A little bit. We lose about a foot every year. I'm okay. I won't be around when it finally goes.
Yeah. You know what? That right there. So see what he just said? That is my theory on how I handle and don't handle a lot of stuff. I always go, oh, I gotta cut the yard Monday. I might not be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll wait it out.
Well, look at it. What odds?
Yeah. Right. Sarah, what would you like to say?
Henry, you had mentioned backstage a little bit. Why don't you tell us really quickly about the theater and how people can go catch that show?
Well, the theater in mine operates every summer. It operates Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at 1:30. It's a $15 admission fee, and we can take in about 75, 80 people, and we're maxed out. And that's how you get there. It's on Bell Island. And when you get there, when we do provide light, it's with a generator, but we use artificial fog and everything else to create an atmosphere. And if you guys come there, it'll be an experience you'll never forget.
I would love to go see
Our
it.
ghosts are very interactive.
Oh, I love it.
Our ghost will come up to you like the ghost of Dobbin's Garden. She will come up to you and she will grab you right by the throat.
Oh, wow.
She will let you know how.
Are you hiring?
What?
Are you hiring?
Oh, yes.
Because I would love this role.
Well, you would love the other role of the white woman even more, because she is extremely vindictive. Because again, go back to what Mr. King was saying there. Again, it's about women, but in this case, it was about a woman, and she was drowned in the well. Again, true story. And now she don't haunt the island anymore, because the person who drowned her, who killed her, who murdered her, he confessed to the murder in 1964. So now we have no hauntings of her, but now her spirit rests. The ghost of Dobbin's Garden will never rest.
I in my head, I keep thinking, like, come to Bell Island. We're losing land, unexplained deaths. We cook all our food in one pot. So we got ghosts.
But the Jigs Dinner is a Newfoundland phenomenon. And you come to Newfoundland and somebody says the Jigs Dinner, they sell it in restaurants.
I'm coming.
You gotta show up. You gotta show up. The last 3 psychics that came to Bell Island, they couldn't get over the sense of spirits, good and bad, all over the island. They couldn't get over it. So
some of these islands, man. You know, Henry.
Plus, we know how to have a good time too. Besides that, right?
I'm hoping so. There's no electricity, right? Oh, no, there is.
Oh, yes, there's tons of electricity, except in our number 4 mine collar. There's electricity everywhere. We got it all. But
I keep. No offense, but when you said at the mines, you were trying to explain the whistle. Did anybody else think the Flintstones, or was it that just me? So, you know what I mean? At the rock time.
Yeah, I do now. I didn't at the time.
This was when this was, and you've all heard probably an air raid siren. The very, very long, sound to it is a very.
We used to play
very frightening sound.
Yeah, very.
And she'd go off just like any. When we were kids, there was always this threat that we'd have to do. There was about 10 air raid sirens on Bell Island. They'd test them every now and then. Man, it was scared the living shit right out of you. Right?
It's funny. It's funny you're saying that because Two things. One, when I was in a band back in, I don't know how long ago, we used to use an air raid siren before we came on to play. Like that would be the sound that we would just play in the dark to get everyone's attention, because there is no sound that gets your attention like an air raid siren. Secondly, I had just recently found these, which are the wartime rations.
Yeah.
It was from my uncle passed away recently, and
Yep.
but in that house lived my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunt, and uncle, brother, sister, my dad. We lived down the street, and then there was one more son that died young. But I found all these ration books, and they got all the stamps in them, and they're really like cool to look at. I don't know. I got to be honest. I couldn't tell you what they were used for. Obviously, food, right? But like, what was I missing? What did I not learn in history that they gave out ration books, and people would use them to trade in? What were they? Does anyone know, or is it just?
Yeah, that's literally what you're allowed, because food was a scarcity. So they were rationing it. So you had to trade. You only got so much. So you had to trade it in for food. It was the only way.
Yeah, in World War II, here
Yeah.
on Bell Island, even though the mines were going flat out, we had rationed, or we were rationed. You could only buy a small amount of sugar. And to substitute for that, you use molasses. You couldn't get tea. Right, you're very much rationed in tea. You're very much rationed. That meat was almost, unless you grow your own, it was totally not there. You couldn't buy it in the store. You just got the bare essentials. You could only buy so much flour, right? And that was it. That's what those coupons and those books were for.
So it wasn't like people didn't do what they did like during COVID, where people that had the money would go out and buy all the supplies.
No, you couldn't get it. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
It just wasn't there during World War II. You, like I said, if you had vegetables, and your neighbor couldn't grow vegetables because they probably lost a husband, or they were sick, or they were older, whatever, you shared, right?
Yeah.
But the things that you might, like, you couldn't get a package of cookies. And that wasn't even on the shelf.
No.
Your stores had very limited supplies, and you could only get what's in your book, they called it, in your ration book.
Yeah, I can see that reasoning for rationing. That makes sense. Controlling like the supply of stuff. I mean, I still don't get gift cards. They don't make sense, but
Oh,
they don't. It's like I had $50, which you could use anywhere, but I decided to get you a gift card to like J.C. Penney or Sears. Go spend it there, and I don't even know if they're still open. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, gift cards. But anyways, I digress. I'm off the track.
Yeah.
Sin, any last words over Henry, or anything else you want to ask him to get in quick?
I've asked everything I had. I just thank Henry for coming on.
that's not a problem.
Yep. Sarah?
No, I enjoyed the stories very much. I now want to go to Bell Island. So as soon as I get that RV, it's 30 hours from Rhode Island, and it's 24 hours from here to Rhode Island. So that's only a 54-hour drive for me.
That was
Well,
pretty good
we've got a very big, long driveway. We'll let you park here.
Oh, thanks, Henry.
So, Henry, here's what I realized is that one, I would like to have a drink with you and listen to the stories. I can't promise that I might not say Hank at some point. I can't promise that. I could
That's
try.
okay.
I'll try my hardest. And also, I would probably, I would like to get scolded by you. Like when I get in trouble, I'd rather hear it from you because I think I would listen. Like I don't think I'd want to get Henry mad. I can tell by his voice that I don't want to wind him up because if he gets mad, he doesn't get after it. So
Did you say you wouldn't want to be scolded, or you do want to be scolded?
No, he does not.
I do, but I wouldn't want to be. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, I thought he said I do, and then that just sounded a bit odd.
Yeah, because I wouldn't
So,
want to be, but it would be very,
Yeah.
it'd be very
Okay.
scared.
That's all I
you know
can
what
say about
He
that.
told that story, and I really was like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'd be worried about what he said. Henry, anything else you want to say or plug or anything else before we go?
No, I enjoyed being on the show. Finally, we got it straightened out where I get to see you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it too.
Looks like they did, Henry. Thank you so much.
It was a great show. We'd like to thank Henry Crane. Remember to like and subscribe. Legitpodcast.com. Let me do the wrap up officially. For Henry Crane, for Sin, Schrader, Hill, author, for Sarah Para.
Normal.
It is me, Mike Lebby, King Mike Ill. This was Legit Paranormal, brought to you by legitpodcast.com. Thank you for watching. It was July 14th, 2020.